The first gut punch wasn't the title change. It was watching Blake, who still thought Git was a wellness trend, present her roadmap to a conference room full of executives while she sat 3 rows back pretending to care about the pastry selection. 4 years. She poured herself into this company. No weekends, no vacations, just caffeine, code, and that quiet, desperate belief that eventually someone would recognize that the entire system functioned because of her. Instead, she got a junior developer repackaging her work as Blake's innovative transformation. And then came the final insult. Her admin privileges vanished, quietly downgraded to contributor status without warning. One morning, she could restart production servers. That afternoon, she couldn't even access the test environment. Just a polite error message like a bouncer saying, "Sorry, you're not on the guest list." By the way, quick reminder, if you're part of the 97% of listeners who enjoy these stories without subscribing, come on, don't be like Blake. Hit that subscribe button. Click the like too. It keeps our team energized enough to uncover these corporate disasters. Your click is our version of admin privileges. Anyway, back to Rachel. It hadn't always been this way. She joined when the office was half discount furniture and half existential dread. Back then, the CTO would hover over her shoulder at 2 a.m. muttering things like, "If this payment system crashes again, we can't make payroll." She was the one who fixed it, fixed everything, built the testing environment from nothing, documented the deployment process, created the automated alerts that still ran daily notifications, quietly, efficiently, always one step ahead of disaster. And people used to appreciate it. The CEO once called her the backbone of engineering and gave her a $50 coffee shop gift card like he was bestowing knighthood through caffeine. The board used to reference her as their technical foundation. Hell, Blake used to ask her what API rate limiting meant. But then came the new VP. Fresh from some mediocre competitor nobody respected, but everyone pretended to recognize. Strutting in with a vocabulary full of jargon and a strategic vision taped to his pride. He labeled the current infrastructure legacy by default, reorganized feature priorities based on intuition and LinkedIn articles, and scheduled meetings with titles like reimagining technical synergy that somehow lasted 3 hours but communicated nothing. Rachel played along initially, gave him room, let him struggle, even repaired his broken project boards without mentioning it. But when he started erasing her name from the roadmap documents and then asked Blake to fill the gaps, she felt that subtle shift inside her like a switch flipping. She didn't explode. No, she started documenting, quietly duplicating everything she touched into a private cloud environment labeled Rachel Dev Archive. She copied the testing branch, secured it with multi-factor authentication linked to her personal account, and began implementing retention policies on critical resources. She wasn't stealing, she was preserving. For testing, for audit trails, for the day someone tried to blame the sinking ship on her and pretend like she hadn't spent 4 years keeping it afloat. And naturally, that day was approaching faster. She watched the VP grow more reckless, more careless. He shortened quality assurance cycles, rushed deployments to meet arbitrary milestones, and dismissed her reported bugs like they were suggestions. Blake absorbed it all, started throwing around phrases like product-market alignment and agile feedback cycles, while stamping his name on metrics he couldn't interpret. He even proposed renaming the testing environment Blake Zone. Her response, adorable. Make sure Blake Zone has backups. He laughed. Of course he did. So she stopped laughing and started preparing. The breaking point wasn't even significant. It was an empty calendar invite, a strategy meeting about the Pinnacle Ventures demo, her infrastructure, her code, her documentation, and she wasn't included. Just Blake, the VP, a few sales representatives, and some intern who once asked if VPN was a messaging app. She stared at the calendar notification for a long moment. Not angry, not shocked, just finished. That evening, she went home, poured herself a drink, opened her private repository labeled "No One Else Understands," and clicked sync. Then she opened her resume, 4 years compressed into 2 bullet points and a fading memory. Her cat settled beside her. Outside, rain began to fall. She didn't cry. She backed up the remaining folders instead. One specifically, she labeled Pinnacle Demo Final. She configured the policy to auto-delete 90 days from that night. Just enough time for everything to appear stable until it wasn't. Her smile was small, controlled. She was no longer the ghost in the machine. She was the machine. Rachel stared at the invite list for the Pinnacle Ventures prep meeting like it had personally insulted her intelligence. Blake, the VP, that marketing manager who once asked if back-end was a fitness term. Even the HR coordinator who thought Scrum was a nutrition plan. But not Rachel. Not even a courtesy notification. She didn't say anything, just closed the calendar window like sealing a coffin. The prep meeting continued upstairs without her. She knew because she could hear Blake through the thin walls parroting her architecture presentation. She recognized every phrase, just diluted like someone explaining quantum physics through fortune cookies. Our pipeline is designed for rapid deployment and efficient rollback. No, it wasn't. Not since you eliminated the staged testing phase. Genius. The architecture diagram demonstrates clean microservice separation. Sure, after I redesigned it 14 times to fix your sticky note version. When she created those diagrams, they resembled blueprints for a spacecraft. Now, stripped of annotations and version tracking, they were just sketches for a tech intern. The VP called it simplifying for stakeholder consumption. What it really meant was making them simple enough for Blake to survive the questions. She maintained a neutral expression, smiled when colleagues passed, even acknowledged Blake when he exited the meeting glowing like he'd just discovered electricity. But internally, something had gone perfectly, irreversibly quiet. That night, she stayed late. Alone. No music, no distractions, just fingers typing like a metronome of silent rebellion. She began transferring her critical build components to a cloud folder labeled Testing Backup Stack. A misleading name technically, but it suited the situation. Just a few compressed files. Nobody investigated, especially not the VP, who was too occupied perfecting his slide animations in PowerPoint, like the company's future depended on seamless transitions. Rachel wasn't furious anymore. Fury was for beginners. This wasn't rage. This was architecture. She accessed her cloud console and initiated a fresh instance. Private, isolated, connected to a payment method they couldn't track unless they subpoenaed her personal accounts. Into that space, she transferred months of testing snapshots, deployment configurations, authentication tokens, sample database exports, the essential components of their pre-production setup, all documented, all timestamped, all hers. In the corner of her display, the folder, Pinnacle Demo Final, materialized. She configured a 90-day retention schedule. After that, automatic deletion. No alerts, no recovery. A digital countdown to silence. Somewhere between commits, she found herself laughing quietly, darkly, like someone reviewing their own termination letter written in Comic Sans. The best part, nobody even noticed. Because the moment a woman becomes quiet in a room full of men, they stop perceiving her entirely. And silence creates the perfect camouflage for erasure. The VP paraded around the office the following morning, discussing velocity. Blake boasted about securing FaceTime with the Pinnacle team. Someone from business operations mentioned, "We should have included her in that meeting, right?" Nobody followed through. That week, Blake asked if she could review his final presentation. She did, and said it appeared adequate, which it did if you appreciate delivering a demo held together by overconfidence and copy-paste. Rachel kept her head down, her mouth closed, and her cloud logs pristine. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't revenge. It was documentation. Because when you construct everything, you don't need to announce its demolition. You just stop supporting it. The worst part wasn't the plagiarism. It was the recognition. Rachel sat 2 seats from the whiteboard. Blake up front, sleeves rolled like he was about to perform surgery instead of butcher a roadmap. Her roadmap, the same one she developed over 3 months of late-night planning, skipped lunches, and post-deployment wine. Only now it had a new label, Strategic Product Evolution version 2, complete with Blake's unnecessary initials watermarked on the slides like a child signing their finger painting. He clicked through each quarter's objectives with false humility, mispronouncing terms she created. Here in quarter 3, we initiate phase 2 of the modular gateway decompartmentalization. Decoupling, someone in the back corrected. She watched as the room absorbed it, none of them recognizing that the dates, titles, Even the slide format were all hers. He hadn't even modified the color palette, just removed the notes section where she documented the actual technical rationale and substituted it with buzzwords like North Star metrics and value optimization. Then he reached the final slide, a simplified timeline she had once carefully crafted aligning to 6 time zones of distributed teams. He had eliminated the dependencies entirely, like deployment sequences didn't matter, like a roadmap was just a suggestion. Rachel didn't raise her hand. She didn't storm out. She waited until the VP finished nodding like a dashboard bobblehead at a car dealership and said, voice steady as ice, "That's interesting. That appears identical to the roadmap I distributed in January. Down to the Sprint 18 milestone. Same title, same sequence, even the typo and authorization." The room went silent like a sitcom with the laugh track removed. Blake blinked. The VP chuckled uncomfortably and said, "Let's concentrate on collaboration, not attribution. Yeah, we're a team here. Unity over ego." Rachel smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Blake resumed, stumbling through the final slides, voice wavering slightly now, while she sat motionless, watching her professional dignity get shredded under the steel-toed boot of male mediocrity. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She went home, powered up her old laptop, black, stickers peeling at the corners like dead skin. It wheezed to life, fans struggling like an asthmatic engine, but it functioned. Inside was a folder she hadn't accessed in years. No one else understands. She stared at it for a long moment, then opened it. Inside lived her original codebase from the early days, before the sprints, before the politics, before Blake. When the company was 3 developers and a CTO with a caffeine addiction, and Rachel had been the only competent adult in the room. She started updating it, not because she was planning anything dramatic, because touching clean code again, her code, was the closest she felt to sanity in months. She didn't fork it yet, not officially, but she began mapping, sketching, rewriting old modules that had since been corrupted by committee. She poured herself a drink, neat, and worked in silence. Just her and the machine, fingers moving like a pianist returning to a beloved composition. Somewhere around 1 a.m., she paused. A tiny smirk appeared at the corner of her mouth as she renamed the README file to README Final version 2, but actually final. The next morning, she submitted her task updates like nothing had occurred. Attended the sync meeting, nodded when Blake asked her to clarify the logic slide he didn't comprehend. Took notes when the VP declared they needed to move fast and break things. Rachel thought, funny, that's exactly what I intend to do. She opened a new private repository. Typed, "No one else understands rebuild." Set the visibility to private. Added 1 user, herself. Commit message, reclaiming the wheel. The first line of code was simple, just a framework. But sometimes all you need is a framework to construct a controlled demolition. The meeting was scheduled for 3:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. The kind of mid-afternoon slot where ambition goes to die. Rachel arrived exactly on time, coffee in hand, laptop closed, hair pulled back like she was about to perform delicate surgery. The VP was late, naturally, swaggered in with a protein bar and a plastic smile like he was doing her a favor just by appearing. "Rachel," he said, stretching her name out like it cost him money. "What's on your mind?" She didn't waste time. "I'd like to formally request a title adjustment. Director of Engineering. I've been leading cross-functional infrastructure for over a year now, including architecture, deployments, incident response. I've documented the responsibilities I'm managing compared to industry standards for that role, and I believe the title would accurately reflect the work I'm already performing." She didn't stutter, didn't over-explain. Just facts delivered like gravity. The VP didn't even glance at her documentation. Instead, he leaned back like he was the final boss in a startup-themed video game, chewed slowly, and said, "We don't negotiate with staff." The words hung there. Not cruel, not angry. Just dismissive. The way you might decline a telemarketing call or delete a promotional email. Rachel nodded. "Understood." He blinked. "That's all." "Yes." He smirked. "Good. Glad we're aligned." And just like that, the meeting concluded. No drama, no confrontation. Just one woman deciding not to offer any more pieces of herself for a title he'd already unofficially awarded to Blake in every meeting that mattered. She didn't return to her desk. She went directly to the HR portal, scheduled an off-cycle departure meeting for the following morning, and opened a blank document titled Resignation Letter Final Draft. She kept it simple. 2 weeks' notice. Final day, the morning of the Pinnacle Ventures demo. She examined the date for a moment, then smiled. Not broadly, not smugly. Just the kind of smile you give the mirror when you finally decide to leave a party that stopped being enjoyable 3 hours ago. Then came the quiet part. She accessed her development console and retrieved the credential set labeled Stage Master Key. It was an old token issued back when the system still trusted her. Back when people still did. She scrolled to the expiry field and added a new parameter. Expires at demo day plus 2 minutes. Not a kill switch. Not sabotage. Just a scheduled expiration. Legal, documented, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking. And no one was. She wrapped it in a commit attached to a system note. Rotating credential. Short time to live for security compliance. Standard procedure. Boring even. Except the TTL wasn't short. It was precise. 2 minutes into the live Pinnacle demo. Just long enough for the opening slides, the product walkthrough, the initial wow moment. And then darkness. She closed the tab, logged off. At home, she prepared dinner. Nothing elaborate, just leftovers and a glass of red that had been breathing since Sunday. She watched reruns, petted the cat, folded laundry with the kind of tranquility that only arrives when you know the next move is already in motion. Blake messaged her that evening asking if she could review the Pinnacle slide deck. She typed, absolutely, looking forward to it, then muted the conversation. There was nothing left to repair. She wasn't staying to rescue them. Just long enough to ensure she departed cleanly. 2 weeks. 14 days. After that, she'd be a ghost they could neither summon nor replace. Her resignation landed in HR's inbox like a whisper in a hurricane, quiet, invisible, and promptly overlooked. 2 days later, an intern she'd never encountered appeared with a beige folder and said, "Hey Rachel, I was instructed to collect your signature for exit processing." No handshake, no appreciation for your service. Just paperwork and borrowed printer ink. She signed without reading. HR sent her a calendar invitation for her final offboarding. Subject line, Rachel T. Separation Wrap-Up. Not even her complete name. Separation. Like they were removing an appendix, and didn't want to know whose. The VP didn't acknowledge it. Walked past her twice that week like she was office furniture. On Thursday, even asked Blake if the infrastructure cleanup ticket was ready for transition. Blake nodded like he understood, and Rachel observed it unfold like a surgeon watching someone attempt heart surgery with kitchen utensils. They were all too focused on the Pinnacle demo. Investors buzzed valuation. Everyone scrambling like anxious rodents, preparing slides, updating fonts, trying to align the vision to a narrative arc none of them comprehended. The product was stable, thanks to her. The pipeline was smooth, because of her. The testing environment still existed solely because she hadn't revoked access yet. She navigated the hallways with the composure of someone who already knew the ending. Instead of unplugging systems or removing components, she did something far more subtle, documentation. But not the helpful kind. She completed the handoff guides, yes. Labeled all the directories, included screenshots, used friendly formatting and positive language. At first glance, it appeared flawless, but she reversed 2 environment variables in the deployment flow. Subtle enough to resemble a typo, catastrophic enough to delay a hotfix by hours. She referenced a non-existent monitoring tool called Stage Eyes as if it were real, and watched Blake nod when she mentioned it aloud, eyes glazing with pretend comprehension. For the testing logs, she documented they were archived to cold storage with a 7-day retention via Cloud Vault. There was no Cloud Vault. There was no cold storage. But Blake, bless his heart, wrote it down like scripture. She removed names from code comments, replaced useful headers with vague placeholders like integration handler, do not modify. Deleted her own documentation folder and replaced it with a blank one containing a single text file. You cannot troubleshoot what you do not understand, TXT. No one noticed. No one even inquired. Rachel spent her final days like someone packing for a journey no one else knew about. Clearing her workspace, removing her plants individually, purging her commit history of breadcrumbs. Every time someone asked how transition preparation was progressing, she smiled and said, "Nearly complete." On Friday, someone brought cupcakes to celebrate Pinnacle Week. Blake offered her one with blue frosting and an awkward smile. "Hey, thanks again for helping with the demo materials. I know you're, transitioning out, but we're in a solid position now." She nodded, accepted the cupcake, consumed it like communion. That evening, she executed the final thread. In her cloud console, she monitored the Pinnacle demo final, token counting toward expiration like a timer in a sealed room. Still valid. Still functioning. She didn't modify it. Didn't need to. The code was clean. The trap was configured. All that remained was to exit gracefully and wait for them to realize the scaffolding they'd removed was still supporting the structure. Friday morning, 8:03 a.m. Rachel walked in with a box of donuts like any other day. No ceremony, no grand finale. Just a white cardboard dozen with jelly already seeping through the bottom. She placed them carefully in the break room beside the burnt coffee maker and wrote, "Happy Demo Day" on a sticky note. Smiley face included. She didn't linger, just turned and walked the floor one final time. People were buzzing. Presentation software glowed on multiple screens. Someone debated font sizing. Blake paced near the elevator, rehearsing his introduction, muttering phrases like market vertical and adoption curve like protective incantations against technical questions. No one looked at her twice. Perfect. She returned to her desk. One plant remained, snake plant, nearly indestructible. She wrapped it in an old sweater and cradled it like an infant. Her backpack was already packed, laptop secured, charger neatly coiled. No sticky notes abandoned, no personal effects in drawers. Just the shell of where she used to be essential. At 8:36 a.m., she terminated her work email. Messaging app auto-logged out. Version control returned a gentle 403 error when she tested her credentials, just to confirm. All clean. She walked one circuit of the floor, half from habit, half from something harder to define. This was the office where she debugged failures at 2 a.m., where she'd slept under her desk during the funding sprint week, where she built something that functioned until the people around it stopped functioning with her. She passed Blake. He nodded nervously, mouth full of frosting. "Hey, thanks again for the documentation. Think I'm all prepared for the walkthrough." "You are," she said. "And you're not." Her final stop was the VP's office. He was inside alone, sleeves rolled, staring at his reflection in the black screen of the wall monitor like he expected it to provide validation. Rachel leaned slightly into the doorway, one foot still in the corridor. 2-minute warning for the Pinnacle demo, she said, casual as a weather report. He looked up, chuckled. "Still bitter, huh?" Her smile was almost kind. She didn't respond, just turned. Left her badge, plastic worn, lanyard frayed, neatly centered on her desk. Beside it, her company laptop, lid closed, power cable coiled like a sleeping serpent. Then she walked out. No one followed. No applause, not even a digital farewell. The front door made a soft click as it sealed shut. Cold morning air struck her like baptism. She inhaled once, then again. Her pulse remained steady. Almost. There it was, that faint tremor of adrenaline. The kind that arrives when you're walking away from something not just broken, but finally concluded. A text notification appeared on her phone. "Your offboarding session has been canceled. Please contact HR if rescheduling is required." She deleted it without reading the rest. Rachel turned the corner, placed her box of old sweaters in the trunk, and slid into the driver's seat. She didn't start the engine. Instead, she accessed her phone one final time and opened the cloud dashboard. Status. Token. Pinnacle demo final. Expires in 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Right on schedule. The wheel was out of her hands now, and the road behind her was already burning. 10:02 a.m. boardroom lights dimmed, just enough to feel prestigious. A row of polished shoes beneath a table that cost more than Rachel's vehicle. On one side, the executive team, VP, CTO, CEO, plus nervous product managers who appeared like they'd rather be anywhere else. On the other side, Pinnacle Ventures, the deities of venture funding, sitting motionless, eyes like loaded weapons behind minimalist glasses. Blake stood at the head of the table, jacket slightly oversized, hair styled like a debate team captain. His voice cracked faintly as he announced, "Let's walk through a real-time demonstration of the new architecture deployment. This testing environment mirrors exactly what we deploy at scale." He clicked the remote. Nothing happened. He clicked again. Still nothing. A moment passed. Then the CTO frowned, leaned forward. "Try refreshing." Blake tapped again, harder this time. Still nothing. Someone cleared their throat. On the projector screen, a frozen loading icon, a mock-up banner where the dashboard should appear. The product, her product, suspended mid-breath like it had just discovered its lungs were missing. The room began to tense. Shoulders shifted, eyes narrowed. "Give it a moment," Blake muttered, glancing nervously at the VP. "Just a minor latency issue." The CTO was already accessing his laptop, fingers moving rapidly. His expression transitioned from focus to pale in 4 keystrokes. Then quietly he announced, "The testing environment isn't there." The VP turned. "What do you mean not there?" "I mean it's gone. There's no active instance. No backup system, nothing. It's like someone disconnected everything and shredded the documentation." The CEO leaned forward. "Do we have a mirror?" The CTO didn't respond immediately, just stared at his screen like it had betrayed him. Blake offered, "Maybe it's a permissions error? We could contact Rachel." The VP interrupted with a laugh that sounded like panic disguised as optimism. "She's gone. We have the documentation." The CTO's eyes flicked toward him. "No, we don't. We have something, but it's generic templates. I reviewed the configurations last night, and the last meaningful update was over a month ago. And the access token expired 12 minutes ago." Silence. One of the Pinnacle partners tapped his pen once. Click. Then again. Click. Finally, someone from the back of the room said, barely above a whisper, "Wasn't Rachel managing the infrastructure?" Another voice, older, added, "She was the infrastructure." That's when the panic materialized. The VP reached for his phone. The CEO leaned back, arms crossed, lips compressed into a line that communicated, "I warned you this day would arrive." Blake just stared at the screen like if he blinked it might restart out of sympathy. The CTO executed a recursive search on every known testing alias. Nothing. No logs, no backups, no breadcrumbs. Access the cloud console, account deactivated. Token expired. Environment archived with auto-deletion. Timestamp, 10 a.m. precisely. Legal, clean, surgical. The VP finally found his voice. "Can we spin up a replacement?" The CTO didn't even look up. "There is no replacement." Across the table, a Pinnacle partner closed his notebook. Another slowly pushed their chair back. No one spoke. Not yet, but the murmur was already spreading like smoke beneath the door. She managed it all. She was the redundancy plan. The VP's mouth moved before his brain could intervene. It's the legacy infrastructure. She always claimed the system was held together with patches. We've been planning to modernize. The CEO didn't even turn. Just said, calm and cold, "You said she was redundant. Fix it." Silence. The CTO, still hunched over his keyboard like it might attack, didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just continued investigating. Terminal open. Access logs. Credential history. The paper trail, invisible until it mattered most. It didn't take long. There it was, an environment decommission notice. Clean, deliberate. Timestamp, 10 a.m. sharp. 2 minutes into the demo. Signed with a commit tag. RT final exit. No rage. No destruction. Just a scalpel applied exactly where it would bleed the most. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered. Blake leaned over, blinking like a child witnessing real magic for the first time. "Wait, that was her. I thought she documented everything." The CTO finally looked up. She was everything. Across the table, one of the Pinnacle partners stood, adjusted his cuffs. "Apologies," he said flatly. "We'll need to reschedule." "Or not." The others followed. No shouting, no theatrical outrage. Just the quiet efficiency of people who had witnessed 1,000 startups fail and now recognized another casualty. One of them, on his way out, muttered, "They're not operational." The VP attempted to intercept them. "Wait, we can demonstrate the roadmap. Blake has but they were already gone. The CEO slowly stood, arms crossed. Not a single muscle in his face moved. He examined the VP like he was calculating the cost of human error versus the price of litigation. Redundant, huh? The VP swallowed. I didn't mean she was, but it didn't matter. Because right then, all anyone could hear was the echo of Rachel's warning. 2-minute warning for the Pinnacle demo. They'd laughed. They weren't laughing now. The CTO rotated his laptop to face the CEO. On the screen, the commit history, pristine as a museum display. Token deprecate 001. Infrastructure expire config final. Log sync removed. Each one signed with her initials. Each one perfectly timed. Each one completely legal. The VP stepped back as if distance would shield him from consequences. I thought she was bluffing, he said, barely audible. No, the CEO replied. She was documenting. Outside the boardroom, people were beginning to talk. Communication channels buzzing. Product teams staring at error messages they couldn't interpret. Operations channels illuminating red with alerts no one could acknowledge. The kingdom hadn't burned. It had been unplugged. From somewhere miles away. Maybe a beach, maybe a cafe, maybe just her back porch with a glass of wine. Rachel didn't need to smile. She already knew they'd finally see her the moment she vanished. The board meeting was convened emergency style. No catered lunch, no presentations, no false optimism. Just suits, silence, and the aroma of reputations burning under fluorescent lights. The CEO sat at the head of the table, a marble statue of disbelief. Around him, board members demanded explanations with their eyes, their crossed arms, their 1,000-yard stares that communicated, "You assured us she didn't matter." The CTO stood like someone at their own sentencing. "No backups," one of them inquired, voice thin and sharp. "No," the CTO replied. "No rebuild possible before Q2. Not without Rachel. And we don't even know where she migrated half the logic. There were warnings, subtle ones, but they weren't actioned." He didn't mention the communication threads. They were already displayed on screen. Archived messages from Rachel dating back 6 months. "We need to discuss infrastructure handoff planning. Only one person has access to the complete testing pipeline. Current structure violates all redundancy best practices. Please review attached document, succession plan version 3 PDF." No one had replied. The VP, seated in shameful silence, appeared like someone who'd been handed their own termination letter and asked to read it aloud. By mid-afternoon, Pinnacle's withdrawal became official. Not a press release, just a quiet email that circulated like a virus. Word traveled faster than code. A competitor's CTO posted a cryptic emoji. Venture capital group chats ignited like wildfire, pulling from Red Wolf. Testing imploded. She walked. Leadership team is chaos. No redundancy avoided. One by one, meetings were canceled. Calendars cleared. Funding extensions paused. A partner from another firm quietly messaged the CEO, "We'll revisit next year if the platform still exists." At the center of it all, a void where Rachel used to sit. A space no one filled because no one could explain how it had all functioned. Only that it did. Until it didn't. Far away, far enough that the crash of waves drowned out the memory of notification pings, Rachel sat beneath an umbrella with a drink that arrived with fruit and a tiny paper umbrella. Her laptop remained closed, her feet bare, and her phone face down on the table, buzzing like a polite ghost seeking attention. She let it vibrate twice before flipping it over. 17 unread emails. 8 were recruiters. 3 were former colleagues from previous positions. Subject lines like, "Did you really do that?" and "I owe you a drink." 1 was from her property manager. "Rent reminder." Fine. But 1 in particular sat at the top. Subject: Principal role, discreet inquiry. "Hey, we saw what transpired at your previous company. Are you available for a principal position? It's yours if interested. No interviews required." She stared at it for a long, measured beat. Not because she didn't know the answer, but because there was power in choosing not to need revenge once you'd already succeeded. Her finger hovered over reply for just a second. Then she clicked archive. Her phone screen went dark. The ocean didn't care. Neither did the sky. And for the first time in 4 years, Rachel smiled without any trace of code behind it. Big thanks for watching, you brilliant architects of karma. Subscribe to keep the coffee brewing and the revenge served cold.